You ever had a dad like mine? A man that loved his liquor more than his family? Me and my brother shared a room. Well, we didn't really share it because half of the room was basically blocked off by my dad. You couldn't even get into the other half. Unless you went through this little hole he made in the wall just big enough for one person to fit through. My mom said he did it so that I wouldn't come in on him while he was doing his business, which was true. I never saw him in there except once when I was 3 years old. And he was sitting in a chair in the corner crying. I remember looking at him and asking why he was sad, and he just looked at me and said, "It's none of your business." And then he started screaming at me to get out of there. So I just left and told my mom what he said, and she got real mad and stormed into his room, only to come out a few minutes later with a bottle of whiskey in her hand. And she was crying too. I didn't understand then, but now I do. My dad was an alcoholic. He drank himself to death before I turned 18, but those last few years of his life, he was way too drunk to do anything except sleep. So really, he wasn't even living. He was just existing. I hate to be so negative, though. I mean, he was the best man I knew, despite his flaws. He taught me how to ride a bike, throw a punch, and most importantly, he taught me how to love my mom. There's nothing more beautiful than the relationship between a father and a son. You know, we're taught from a young age to go to our dads if we need help fixing something. We ask them to teach us how to do things, and they always make time for us. That's what made me so angry when I found out about his secret room. It was like he was hiding something from me, but I was too scared to confront him. He was a big guy, and he would get real violent when he was drinking. One time, he pushed my mom down the stairs, and she had to get stitches above her eye. Another time, he punched me so hard that I spit up blood. So, yeah, I was scared. I was also confused why he was spending so much time in there. When I was 16, I finally got up the courage to talk to him about it. But when I walked into his room, he just stared at me with these bloodshot eyes and asked me what I wanted. "Why is there a hole in the wall?" I asked. "Why are you always in this room?" He hesitated and then started to speak. "Your mother," he said. "She needs her space sometimes, and I like being in here because it's quiet." "But that's not true," I said. "She's never in here, and you're never in there with her." He looked away and took a deep breath. "Just forget about it," he said. "It's none of your business." Then he passed out on his bed. I felt so stupid. I should have known he was drunk. I remember him telling me once that he could drink a fifth of whiskey in one night and still drive home without crashing. He also used to tell me stories about how, when he was in the war, he'd drink so much that he forgot where he was half the time. He even had a Purple Heart. He received it for getting stabbed in the shoulder. I think he was in Vietnam. I don't know. All I know is that when he came back from there, he started drinking more than ever. As he got older, he became more and more violent. He'd get drunk and start screaming at my mom and me. One time he threw a glass at me and it hit me right above the eye. It was bleeding everywhere and I was furious. I picked up a glass and threw it at him. But he just laughed and said, "That's my boy." After that, he would call me names like Little Tipsy and Junior me, and he'd say that I was just like him. Now, I hated that. I never wanted to be like him. The only thing I liked about him was his sense of humor. He was always making jokes, even when things were serious. I guess that's why I became a comedian. But anyway, I hated that he spent so much time in his room. I wish he'd take me fishing or to the driving range. My favorite memory of him is when he took me to get my first driver's license. I was so nervous. I thought I was gonna puke my guts out. But he put his arm around my shoulder and said, "Hey, it's all right, son. Just relax." And I did. I ended up passing my test with flying colors. And he was so proud that he bought me a steak dinner to celebrate. Yeah, he was the best, even if he was an alcoholic. I actually talked to a lot of people about their fathers. Some of them had amazing stories, while others were nightmares. There was this one lady who told me about how her dad kept her as a sex slave. Another guy told me that his dad burned down their house with everyone in it. And he was the only survivor. I also talked to this kid who said that his dad never even acknowledged that he existed until he turned 18, and then his dad adopted him just so he could get his organs when he died. Like, what kind of monster does that? Those stories? They were crazy, but the one thing they all had in common was regret. These people wished they had a different relationship with their fathers, which is why I never want to forget mine. Now, I'm not saying that you should never try to stop your dad from drinking. Of course you should. But what I am saying is that if he's an alcoholic, he probably won't stop. So don't waste your time trying to convince him that he has a problem. Instead, spend the time you have with him making memories. Because, let me tell you something, they will help you get through the rough times. Also, don't enable him. By enabling him, you're only making things worse. If he's passed out on the floor, don't help him up. Let him sleep it off. If he asks you for money, don't give it to him. Tell him you don't have any. And if he gets violent, run away. Don't try to fight him because you can't win. Trust me, I've tried. My dad died in his sleep when I was 17 years old. My mom says it was a good thing because he didn't have to suffer anymore. But I disagree. I think he was happy. He was finally free. No more guilt, no more shame, no more pain. He was finally at peace. When I found out he was dead, I felt a mix of emotions: sadness, anger, confusion, but mostly relief. I was relieved that I wouldn't have to hide under my bed anymore when he came home drunk and looking for someone to beat up. I was relieved that I wouldn't have to hear him scream at my mom anymore. I was relieved that I wouldn't have to walk on eggshells around him anymore. Basically, I was relieved that I could finally live my life. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's terrible. This kid's got issues. Well, maybe I do, but I'm not the only one. My dad was an alcoholic, but my mom was a co-alcoholic. She knew how to push his buttons and make him drink more. She also knew how to make him jealous, which was pretty messed up if you ask me. She did it to keep him around. She knew that if he left, she'd lose her ticket out of this small town. So she held on to him for dear life. Even though he was a monster sometimes. She told me once that she loved him so much that she didn't care if he beat her up every now and then. She said it was worth it. Because he was the most amazing man she ever met when he was Una drinking. But she was wrong. She was so wrong. No one deserves to be beaten up, not even for love. All this makes me wonder, was my dad really my dad? Or was he just a stranger who looked like my dad? I mean, I barely remember him being sober. And when he was drunk, he wasn't even there. His mind was somewhere else. So who was I really talking to when I talked to him? Was I talking to my dad or a stranger? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the only thing that matters is that he was there for me in the end. He was there for me when I needed him the most. He was there for me when I was scared and confused. He was there for me when I didn't have anyone else to turn to. And that's what makes him the best dad I ever had.